Greetings, fellow visitors. This is Upgrade Terminal, a Star of Providence fancast. I'm Malachi.
I'm Ruben.
And I'm Nick. Welcome back to the facility.
It is very nice to be speaking with both of you. It's been a while.
It has been a while.
Really? You guys have been on vacation. I've been doing my stuff. It's been like almost 2 months now, I feel like.
No, not 2 months, like 1 month.
But
I'm
it
saying
does
that's
feel
how it
like 2
felt.
months.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
felt like
yes.
such a long time. Like we've been separated for so long. I've been like cluttering all these thoughts about the game in my mind, and finally I get to share them with you guys.
Oh, great.
Fantastic.
Well, let's start with something nice from the week. Ruben, what's something nice that happened to you this week?
Probably something no one's picked up on yet, but this week a really cool new game was released called Hades 2.
Mm-hmm.
And by itself, I wouldn't have just mentioned it as like a positive thing, even though I've been playing it and I really like it.
Mhm.
What makes me mention it here, if you allow me to go a little bit off road, like
Sure.
years ago, a friend of mine played the original Haze, and he told me like, "Oh, you should try this. You would like this."
Mm-hmm.
And I at the time I probably would have said something like I know its reputation, like, oh, you make upgrades to yourself. Like that's not the type of roguelike I like. I like where everything runs like, is fair and square. You boot up for the first time and you don't like upgrade over time. So I was kind of doubtful like if I was gonna like it or not. But then me and him, like we just sat in like voice chat for like hours and I started playing it and I really enjoyed it.
Mhm.
And we did that the exact same thing this time. Like we like as soon as both of us could, which was yesterday during the weekend, we just like played together for like probably like 5 hours, 6 hours, and I had a blast. Like catching up on each other again because we hadn't talked in like a few like weeks, and
Yeah.
that was really fun. Like an opportunity to connect with him again, and also enjoying a new game that I'm probably going to play a lot more of like the upcoming weeks.
It's always nice to make an event out of a game release. I remember when I did that with one of the Crypt of the Necrodancer expansions, where like, okay, I'm getting a whole bunch of snacks. I'm getting in a group chat call with like 5 other people, and we're all just going to dive in and just enjoy it. So that's a wonderful time.
Exactly. And yeah, it's a big like stark contrast to how I usually play games, right? Like Star Prof. The first time I played it was just by myself, and I really enjoyed it. But now I'm like, oh, you know, imagine how much more fun it would be if I had like-minded people who were also like trying it out for the first time. And I got the opportunity to do that.
I think that's something that took me a while to discover as well. Is like n- playing games is fun and all, but if you get to share with friends in all these ways, it makes it so much. Creates such a strong memory of that time together, and then it just elevates that experience even more.
Hmm.
I've never done that, but that sounds really fun. You're making me want to do that with Hades 2 and also the Star of Providence update. But
Oh, we're definitely going to be doing that with the update.
and yeah, and then all the beta testers will be like, yeah, we know, right? Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely. I can tell you without spoiling anything that there's gonna be moments where we're all gonna be watching and being like, "Is the thing gonna happen? Is the thing gonna happen? Is he gonna see it?" And be like, "Yeah." Ruben, I think Ruben has an inkling of what I'm talking
I
about.
know you don't worry. I know exactly what you're referring to.
I think it's a neat way to not only like bring yourself closer to a game, but to kind of like cement a friendship, because
Hmm.
now when you play Hades, when you play on your own, Ruben, I'm sure it will remind you of your friend.
Yeah, it does.
So Malachi, what's something nice that happened to you this week?
This week, there was a huge solar storm, and
Ah,
I was able to the northern lights, the aurora borealis, came as far south as Washington and Idaho in the US. And so I didn't think I was going to be able to see it, but the night before last, we drove out to somewhere with very little light pollution and saw an incredible show. You guys, the aurora borealis it's everything people said it was and more. I could not I could not believe what I was seeing. I didn't know that it could move so quickly, but there were times when the entire sky was flickering and it looked like a screen. And I was just like, It's been so long since I've seen something so incredible that I just am like gasping at it.
Just awestruck.
Yeah, that's the word for it. I was completely awestruck. I haven't experienced that in a while. I guess being like a jaded adult or something, but it was mind blowing. And yeah, I just if you guys ever have a chance to see that, definitely take advantage of it. It was beautiful.
Hmm.
I've also been reading the book series Hyperion by Dan Simmons, and it had been a while since I read a novel that I really, really enjoyed. I'm reading the second one now, The Fall of Hyperion. Super good sci-fi. I'd never heard of this, but um, I have a friend who asked me, "Hey, have you read this?" He had it on hand. He lent it to me, so I read the first one while I was traveling. And one of the coolest things in it is it actually inspired Citizen Sleeper, which I don't know if either of you have played that game.
Okay, okay, I'm gonna cut in for just a brief moment. I
Hmm.
know you gifted me Citizen Sleeper, and I have yet to play it,
Oh, well,
but
this isn't me trying to guilt you into playing it. I forgot
but
about that.
but I did see a tabletop RPG one shot in the
Hmm.
universe of Citizen Sleeper 2, and that was a lot of fun to watch.
I'm in the middle of watching that. Yes.
Ooh.
I haven't played it myself, but someone I really respect mentioned that the game was so good that he basically did like an all nighter the first time he played it. Like he just couldn't stop playing the game for because it was that good to
I
him. So
might do a stream of the first time I play it, so I can, like we said, share that experience with some friends.
I don't want to praise the game too highly. I don't, but for me, it was like an unforgettable experience. It's just an amazing game.
Hmm.
It's, yeah, it's wonderful. But there's an aspect of the game where you can constantly tap into, because you're a synthetic being,
Hmm.
you can tap into kind of the internet of things around you. In Hyperion, the word for it is data sphere, and
Hmm.
it's just fascinating to ponder because that does exist around us all the time, right? I mean, that's what our phones and computers hook up to essentially is the internet. But to be able to interface with it instantly in your mind is kind of
Hmm.
a really cool concept. And the book Hyperion and that series does it in a really good way. Like to me, I think that's challenging to explain and describe in a book, but Dan Simmons does a really good job. And then Citizen Sleeper is a game that captures that in the gameplay. So anyway, I guess I'm recommending Hyperion and Citizen Sleeper.
We'll already have one of those.
Nick, what about you? What's something nice that happened to you this week?
So I'm going to do something slightly different. And
Oh,
instead of talking about something nice that happened to me this week, I'm going to talk about something nice that is going to happen.
oh, future
And
tense.
mhm, tomorrow is my birthday.
Oh, hey, well,
As,
early happy birthday.
yeah,
as of the date of this recording, by the time this episode comes out, it's already my birthday. So don't worry
I,
about it, listeners. You're not. I'm not going to make you all buy me a gift.
I love the way you said that. You're like something that's going to happen. My birthday.
But I guess if I were to stick strictly to the theme, I did come back from my trip with a couple of books.
Ooh,
And do either of you know the webcomic XKCD?
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So Randall Munroe, the author of XKCD, has also done a few books,
Hmm.
and he has this sometimes updated other blog called What If, in which people submit ludicrous questions, and he attempts to seriously answer them using physics and science.
Hmm.
And it very quickly goes off the rails sometimes. But he has a way of writing about it that's always funny, always sticks to the science. And I happened to catch the books one and two of that, and plus an additional book, a how to book, which is instead of having ludicrous questions and creating taking them very seriously. It's taking very ordinary questions and then very quickly coming up with the most ridiculous ways to answer that are still technically in the spirit of the question. So I've been
That sounds
doing
fun.
it is I highly recommend them. It's been a blast to read them. I recommend them.
What's the
Uh
title of the book?
what okay, hold on. I'm going to have to look this up now.
Okay.
Okay, it's called What If: Serious Scientific Answers to Absurd Hypothetical Questions. Then two is more serious scientific answers to absurd hypothetical questions. Then how to is absurd scientific advice for common real world problems.
I feel like I've heard of this book before, and maybe it was from you because you're the person in my life that shares XKCD with me the most.
It's definitely something that's in my wheelhouse for things that I enjoy. And if you just want like a taste of what's in those books, there is a some of those questions have been previewed or at least initially answered in the blog. So I recommend checking it out. That's a completely free recommendation. And if you really like it, you should get the books because they're a fun read, and it's the type of book that's fun to share with other people. So the main topic of this episode is going to be discussing beverages. So
Mhm.
anyone who's played Star of Providence knows that, if you pause the game in the first two floors, you'll see a little picture of Null drinking some coffee, or if you're in hard mode, E13 drinking some orange juice. And that's just it's a nice little bit of detail, it's a bit of characterization that didn't really need to be there, but
Mhm.
it is there. And it got us thinking, well, do those choices of beverages say something about the characters themselves? And it leads to ask, well, the other characters don't have a beverage, but if they did, what do we think they might be? And maybe we can also talk about our own opinions on coffee and orange juice, as trivial as it may seem, but hey, why not?
Hey, to me, coffee is not trivial, and I think that's where we should start. I want to hear
Okay.
your guys' thoughts on coffee and orange juice. Is there one that you prefer over more than the other, Nick?
Um, I guess to answer this question, I should probably give a bit of context, which is like I've always liked
Please,
orange.
I love context. I fucking love
Oh,
context. Give it to
please.
me.
Okay. Um, I mean, I've always liked orange juice. Orange juice was probably one of the first beverages I've had in my life, things I've had to
Hmm.
drink, and I've always liked it. My opinion on it, and I know this is going to be a controversial one for some people, but I want no pulp in my orange juice. None.
Mm.
I want it to be just a smooth liquid
Hmm.
with none of the little flecks, none of the little bits in it. Just silky smooth orange juice. But like, even if they only have pulp, I'll still like drink it. It won't be my favorite, but I'll still drink it. And
Yeah,
it's me.
you're not a snob.
No, I have my preference, but I'm not going to reject the other option.
Yeah.
And but it's convenient because it's kind of something that you can kind of get almost everywhere, you know, and it's hard to do it poorly. Unlike coffee, which for the longest time in my life,
Hmm.
I only really knew bad coffee. And that's not the fault of coffee. It's the fact like, well,
It's the fault
this
of
is
your dad.
How did you get it? Did you have a coffee machine? Like, did you like
yeah,
press your own beans? Like, what did you do?
well, the routine that my dad would make, because he's the one who makes the coffee in my
Yeah.
house, is he would get beans, the whole beans, not pre-ground beans. He would get beans, and then the night before the morning in which he would make the coffee, he would grind the beans, and they would just stay there the entire night. And I have told him about this, and he's like, "But it's my routine. I don't want to change it." And I'm like, "I guess this is just how it is in this house." But yeah, for the longest time, I only knew bad coffee, and the coffee itself was cheap. It wasn't anything interesting. It was just like, it's coffee beans, whatever.
Hmm.
It was only later in life that I was like, okay, but I'm curious, is there like actually good coffee out there? And it turns out, yes, there is. There's places that make very nice coffee, very tasty coffee. I've also tasted coffee in other countries, and I've really enjoyed it. It's
Hmm.
delightful. It's just not something that I get to have all the time in my own home, in a sense.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone would be surprised by your opinions on it, Malachi.
Well, I actually grew up drinking
Mm.
a lot of orange juice,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm a pulp guy. So
That's fair.
yeah, that's this is well, this is interesting. I
Woohoo! Team
We
Pulp.
like
we don't have to fight over it. You can just be like, all right.
no, but I to me it's so being like friends with you, Nick, has been interesting because we're very different in many ways, and this is I was thinking like, oh, this is just another example of this where like Nick and I are on opposite sides of the spectrum here. But yeah, I always liked orange juice with pulp, and I drank it a lot growing up because actually, when I was young, coffee was, I was raised religious. Coffee was against the rules, it was bad.
Mm-hmm.
I was very curious about coffee, and I actually drank it at an early age against the rules.
Mm-hmm.
God was very upset, and I loved it. I didn't like it because of the caffeine. I wasn't drinking it in the morning. I just liked the taste, and so I started secretly drinking coffee on school trips. I actually have this memory of a teacher. Her name was Mrs. Ogden. She was
Hmm.
a member of the same religion as me, and I was on this school trip with her, and we were like in the coffee, or not in the coffee. We were in the lobby of the hotel. We had both come down for breakfast, and I looked up from making a cup of coffee, and she was also making a cup of coffee, and we just kind of shared this look.
Oh,
We kind of shared this look, like, yeah.
If you don't tell, I won't tell.
Yeah, and she just smiled at me, and I like, it's a very small memory, but I've always kind of cherished it. Like I really appreciated like seeing like, oh, you like coffee too, and you're also secretly drinking it. But yeah, since then I've always kind of loved coffee. I love the ritual of it. I like grinding the beans. I like the smell and the taste. So yeah, I drink it a lot, and that was something that kind of uh,
Endeared you to Null?
exactly. Yeah, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. It endeared me to Null for sure. I just immediately was like, "Oh, hey, you're hard at work, grinding away. So am I. Cheers." So I love that the beverages were included in the game.
Mm-hmm.
it is a very, I would say, almost necessary part of characterization because I mean, we're going to talk later about like what we think the others might have
Mm-hmm.
tasted, but I actually really struggled with like coming up with notes for that part. I'm like, they're ships. Like we see them do like a couple of actions in which you can infer a character,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like the verse of this is much easier, right? Like they show you just a simple gesture. Oh, this is what they drink,
Mm-hmm.
and be like, oh, I actually have like a mental image of now a little bit more of like what they do and who they are.
Ruben, do you have a preference?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, Ruben, what are your opinions on coffee and OJ?
Uh, so okay, I have a bit of I have a couple of ideas about coffee, mostly because I didn't drink coffee at an early age. I
Mm-hmm.
just never, I don't know if I never got offered, and maybe I never tried it, but I don't remember really ever drinking coffee
Mhm.
before I entered the workforce.
Uh-huh.
So coffee to
Mm.
me is very associated with like offices, people slacking,
Mm.
and like walking around behind my desk, being like, "Oh, can I get past? Yes, okay, fine." And
Office
then,
culture.
yeah, exactly. And I never disliked drinking coffee, but I never went to usually get one myself. And
Mm.
if anything, people were kind of pushed. Like if the manager came in, we got a new coffee machine, and I'm like, "Ruben, do you want a drink?" I'm like, "I don't need one right now." Oh, but this espresso, like it's so good. Like this one grinds its beans like this. Oh, okay, I guess I'll have one. And then he brings it to me, and then he starts looking at me to see what my reaction's gonna be. So, to me, like coffee is it has an undeserved negative reputation, not because of its taste, because I kind of like it, but I just associate it so bad, like everything I hate about like office culture, Like, oh, we're all tired here. We need this. We need that. Oh, I can't work without my coffee, dude. It's something I've heard very often.
I think the problem is that coffee had became this drink that was purely pragmatic. It is a drink that helps you do work, and not
Hmm.
this is something that you drink for its own enjoyment.
Yes, that's what it looks like in my head. But maybe if I had drank more coffee as a kid, I wouldn't have had that association. But
Hmm.
if I like that's how I would characterize it. And the opposite for me is true of orange juice. I had a like a juice presser as a
Hmm.
kid that I loved using. I would get like oranges from the from like food store, not like a supermarket, like a grocery store,
A
but like
market, just a
yeah, a market. Yeah. Like, so not like the mass produced like
no,
orange
just
juice
local fruits and
from the
vegetable
yeah.
market.
And then from that reason also I kind of like the pulps, like the little bits inside. Like for me it's like it just adds to the texture of it.
Fair.
And so it's kind of well it's a what do you call it? Like they're to me they're almost opposites. Like orange juice I kind of associated with youth, with happiness, and
Hmm.
Hmm.
coffee's like ugh. You
Boring
work,
office
yeah,
people.
yeah,
Welcome to the adult world. Here's your
hmm,
water infused with pressed beans.
exactly. And again, I know this is unfair to coffee. I'm talking about if it's like a person who's gonna get offended for me, like for not like considering it well enough. But
Michael Far's not offended.
No, I'm gonna
mhm,
coffee. Just take off your headphones. Don't listen to this part of it.
mhm.
Skip this part of the pod. Skip ahead. Coffee.
But it's not too late. Maybe I'll buy my own coffee machine at some point, and I'll drink it at home. And be like, oh, actually, this is nice. But that day has not yet come.
Oh, I wish I could make you a cup of coffee, Ruben.
Can I
I
yeah,
would
have
you,
one
make you
you
a
would do
cup
too?
a
of
good
coffee
job.
that would be good, and I'd be the opposite of your manager. Well,
Hmm.
actually, I guess I would be pressuring you to drink it in that scenario, but I wouldn't be like, "You must like it. Join our cult. Join our coffee cult, Ruben."
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Ironically, coffee is one of the ways in which you broke out of that environment, Malachi.
Yeah, yeah.
But you said something, Ruben, I think serves as a very good transition, in which you associate orange juice with, like, childhood and sort of something that's kind of
Hmm.
sweet and very pleasant, and
Exactly.
coffee something more like, well, this is work. This is something that is associated with more adulthood and being more serious.
Exactly.
Have those opinions of yours of the drinks influenced how you think Null and D13 are? Because one enjoys this, very childhood associated drink, and the other one this very adulthood
Hmm.
associated drink. So, like, what do you think those drinks say about the character that enjoys them?
Not only the fact that is their drink, but also Null drinks it from like a cup that you would find like at a at an office essentially, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, or am I reversing it? I know like
No, you're right. Yeah,
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 Noel's
I'm not,
drinking it out of a mug.
a very
yeah, I'm not
plain
talking.
mug,
And D13, he doesn't drink it from
a
like
glass.
from
He
like a
drinks it from like a
cafe,
juice
yeah,
box.
from something you'd find on the playground essentially.
Yeah.
So that also like
Vending
flows
machine
to
orange
yeah.
juice.
No, you guys didn't have this. Like at my school, like they had like the cafeteria, but then they just like buy in stuff from like the grocery store, and then sell it for double the price. So, and they'll be like, well, like the milk was basically free, but if you wanted anything else, like a Capri Sun, they just have it right there because you're not allowed to leave school grounds, of course, during
Mm-hmm.
school time.
So we did have one at my school, but eventually, like, once you got into secondary, you were allowed at for lunch to leave school and go get something else elsewhere. But we definitely had, like, you know drinks at the school, not cafeteria, but like a place where you can just go buy snacks and drinks in your breaks. So, Malachi, given
Mm-hmm.
your opinions on coffee and orange juice, like, what did the fact that Nolan T13 drink those things make you think the characters were like?
Well, there are. Ruben kind of touched on this, but there are kind of beverage tropes.
Yes.
So usually like coffee,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always interpreted Knoll's coffee to be just black coffee,
Hmm.
probably because of the difficulty settings and how you can they're associated with coffee as well. But
I mean, kind of, sort of. This is more a thing that I did in one of my fanfics, which was like you interpret the different difficulties as different blends of coffee that Null is drinking in that run. So
mhm.
like mild coffee is just like, oh, just regular run of the mill coffee. Intense is this kind of more bitter, more intense, stronger brew, and then sudden death coffee is like, I'm sure Ecofar has seen like those brands of coffee that's like, oh, super caffeinated, strongest coffee, like the kind of thing that goes, this is probably a bad idea.
It's the kind of stuff that Ruben's coworkers would really like.
Yeah.
I imagine.
The people drinking it for the caffeine, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, that's the excuse. I think they also just like the taste. But it's
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
both like this. I'm gonna be productive, boss. So I'm gonna sit here at the coffee machine for 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna do the greatest work like you've ever seen.
Yeah.
And also, like, well, as they're standing beside the coffee shop, looking at all the employees and what they're doing, and being like, "Don't mind me, I'm just watching."
It also doesn't help that where the coffee machine is, it's out of view from the desks.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
Mm.
around the corner. So you can just stand there, and if no one pays attention, like you're just invisible. Doesn't like you can just stand there for like a bit if you need a break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I looked up on TV tropes. They had a page on like drink based characterization,
Yeah.
and I kind so for tough, dangerous characters, it said this is often indicated by someone drinking something very strong and bitter.
Mm-hmm. Like a reflection of their character that they can withstand this bitter, tough drink, and so they themselves are tough.
Yeah, but my take on why, like, I think coffee fits Noel well because to me, what I interpret is Noel is determined and they're hardworking. And I
Mm-hmm.
like how it kind of parallels, for me, it paralleled the grind of the game, right? Like, it
Mm-hmm.
made sense as a beverage. It's like, yeah, I'm working through this, trying to get better and trying to reach the end of the game. Noel's trying to get the power eternal. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's really kind of interesting that. D13 is the one that ends up defeating Monolith, and the fact that they are sipping on orange juice makes me think that they are kind of like fun loving. They have a
More relaxed attitude.
yeah a more relaxed attitude, which touch on again, Ruben. This you saying like office workers all drinking coffee, like yeah, but so the guy drinking orange juice in the back can do just as much work, and their attitude. It's more about the attitude.
The other thing is that though, you know, a lot of people tend to get very conscious about what they drink in front of others, and I like the fact that D15's juice box kind of indicates to me that they kind of don't really care about. It's like, yeah, I'm drinking here, sipping juice from my juice box, and like it's very kind of, I'm just doing this for me. I do this because I like it and I'm enjoying
Yeah,
it,
I
and
like
it
what I
gives me,
like.
yeah, and it gives me that little bit of like, sweetness and a little and energy that they want. It's less kind of caffeine based. Oh, okay, gotta work for this, but more like, hey, this is gonna be a fun time. Let me just have a little sip of my orange juice. All right, let's go.
But we don't know very much about these characters, but I think that beverage choice really is like powerful characterization. Just that one little thing can really stimulate the imagination and help you picture who these ships are.
But also, I mean, in the sense of much information about them, what little information we do have tends to become something we extrapolate from and try to use it as a key to see what else we can find out about them. Like, what kind of person drinks coffee? What kind of person drinks orange juice? What does that say about them that is not available to us anywhere else in the game?
Mhm. I remember Coolant on the server said something about like the drink not being coffee but being like soul juice or something. And I was so disturbed by that concept. I had never considered that before because
Isn't
it
that
is kind of red.
yeah, like it's just the red steam coming out of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And I was like, wow, I never even considered that.
I
But
mean, it's coffee bean soul juice.
It's coffee beans from the future. Let's just put it like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, there's definitely some wacky coffee
Mhm.
beans out there, and like I think they're only going to get even more interesting as time goes by.
In the game, we don't see what the other ships are drinking,
Hmm.
but I think we've all put some thought into what we think the other ships would drink.
Hmm.
We'll start with Sword Overlord.
Okay, I'll go first.
Okay.
So don't ask me why this is what I picked for them, but my idea of Overlord is like their favorite drink is beer, but specifically, it's a brand of beer called Swords. So they drink swords, a beer, a type of it's a beer. I don't know anything
Okay.
about beer, so I don't know what type of beer is it. I'm like, I don't fucking know. I have no idea. But to me, they just for some reason I'm like, yeah, this seems like a beer guy.
Mhm.
I don't know.
It's just his character. He
Yeah.
he likes swords. He uses them. He likes the swords drink. He has swords posters on his wall back home. He
I mean, there's definitely some sword fanatics out there. That part is 100%
oh,
true to
I know some
life.
of these people. Don't worry. Like I know, they definitely are out there.
I'm imagining the like the advertising campaign for that beer. Do you like swords? Do you like beer? Drink swords. The only beer for sword wielders. Oh, I like that. I didn't consider the brand name for my choice, but yeah, I could see that. I could see
Mm.
Overlord because Overlord seems again like going to like beverage tropes seems kind of like tough, you know?
Tough in a different way.
Yes, yes. Swinging a huge sword around. That
Yeah.
giant sword, you got to have, if I had to be swinging that around, I'd probably want a beer too.
Well, it's also like if you're a sword wielder, by necessity, you have to get close to enemies, whereas Null can afford to take weaponry that keeps them at a distance. Overlord has to get up close and personal. And I feel like having a couple of sips of beer definitely helps prepare you for the thought of like, okay, let's just go in and start hacking.
Like liquid courage.
Yeah, although that's sometimes associated to much stronger spirits than that.
True.
Okay, but what did you originally think as a beverage for Overlord then?
My first thought was protein shakes.
Huh.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, I wish I had come up with that.
not because like I don't have a specific brand for it, but kind of for the same reason that you were saying he should drink beer. Like same thing. I'm like, okay, this guy's used to wielding heavy swords. Like he's definitely hitting the gym.
Mhm.
Overlord's character strikes me as kind of serious, probably just because of the expression on the mask that Overlord wears.
Mhm.
But yeah, protein shakes is what I was thinking.
I really had not thought of that, but I can see how you can construct a mental picture of the character in which that fits.
Mhm. He's a heavyweight, which is funny because I kind of like a different perspective on him.
Mhm.
Oh, do tell.
Yeah. So maybe I'll leave my actual drink was for last, but I'll tell you how I interpreted
Please.
Sword Overlord's character because well, I'm assuming I'm allowed to talk spoilers about the game, but he
Yeah, you
goes
can
in.
speak as much spoilers as you
Yeah,
want here.
like the sword art like type of gameplay is it's like a very daring, like oh you're confident, you go up into enemies' faces,
Mm-hmm.
like you're a bit hot-headed. That's kind of my idea of like
Hmm.
the sword player. And like sword over, like he gets into trouble, like he goes in but he
Mm-hmm.
gets like stomped by a machine and has to be saved by the other visitor who came with him, like
And also
he
that also didn't work out.
and it also didn't work out. So he's in my mind he was kind of like, well, he's like strong and
Uh-huh.
confident, but he isn't like that, like oh let me think about this rationally for a bit. So I kind of had like a slightly immature, but like what would like a slightly immature person who would be like I'm ready to do anything, kind of like a hot chocolate type of guy, like
Mm.
like confident but not very well like, not very well
Something a
articulated.
bit impulsive then.
Yes. Oh, that's the perfect word. Thank you. I should have written that down instead of all this garbage
That's
in
fine.
my notes.
It's fine.
But that was kind of my idea. So it's kind of the opposite. Yeah, he's like strong, but he
Hmm.
doesn't like think well ahead, and
Hmm.
this kind of fits in my mind with that stereotype.
I could see him drinking hot chocolate too,
Hmm.
because no one's gonna make fun of Overlord. He's
Mhm.
he can drink whatever he wants.
See, in my mind, the chaos would make fun of Overlord.
Yeah, but he wouldn't like take it too harshly. He's like, oh, whatever, guy. That kind of
Yeah, he would brush it off, just like whatever.
yeah, exactly.
Well, those are some very good. That's a good spread of headcanons we got there. I'm quite pleased with that.
Maybe the reality is Overlord just dumps all three together.
Well, no, that's the most chaotic thing I've ever
Well,
heard.
see,
That might
here's
fit
the,
it
okay.
out.
You say that that serves as a perfect segue for the chaos ship.
Yes.
My choice of my idea was that what's their favorite drink? They don't have really one favorite drink. It's like, oh, you ask them one day, they'll tell you one thing. You ask them the other day, they'll tell you another thing. The answer
Hmm.
keeps changing. They're constantly being like, their favorite drink is whatever they just want to drink at that moment, and it's never a consistent choice.
Hmm.
Like someone who just wants is willing to try anything. Just try anything, see what it's like.
Mhm.
Try everything, like that song from Zootopia.
It also means that sometimes they get stuff that's not very good.
But they're happy with that, right?
I
They
think they
they
would
they
be
like the
glad
they
they
like
tried
the
it.
they like the Russian roulette, the beverage Russian roulette.
Hmm.
Like, am I going to get something that's good this time?
Like I imagine the sort of person that if they go up to a bar and they see all the options, they just go, that one. They don't even really know it. It's just give me that. I'll have a try of that.
I actually went another way.
Good. I want to hear this.
Okay, so my beverage pick for chaos was green tea, and my thinking on this is chaos exists. The ship exists within chaos, right? Weapons changing all the time. So to to kind of show that they are at peace with this, that they like chaos.
Hmm.
I think green tea is interesting because green tea often represents kind of like more of like a zen-like state, like
Hmm.
being at peace. And I like the idea of chaos being at peace within the chaos.
Sort of a kind of like something that keeps them calm and centered and allows them to, with a cool demeanor, roll with whatever they get.
Yeah, and I think of course the coloring works well
Yeah,
for
of
green
course.
tea, but then I also, in my mind, it was a good contrast with sword because I think you have a similar relationship between sword and chaos that you do with Nolan D13. It's an
Mm-hmm.
interesting parallel, so I kind of wanted to balance that out as well. So yeah, green tea.
I like that line of thinking a lot, actually.
I like it too. That's why I stole it.
Really?
Yeah, like last time they kept stealing my best items, so like
Uh
best
huh.
weapons thing.
Now you're coming back for revenge.
No. I actually wrote down just tea in general
Oh,
because as
nice.
far as I wrote in, like I didn't specify green tea because okay, even though I'm not like a big, I don't drink tea that often. I know
Hmm.
there's many different kinds of flavors that people always have in like one of those bags, right? Where it's
Mm-hmm.
like
Oh
okay, here's
yeah.
like 50 different ones you can pick between. So that felt thematically uh consistent with like chaos always changing it up, having like a lot of options at his disposal.
Yeah.
And also like you mentioned, he out of everyone in the like in the game, and it's like a foil, like it's an opposite again of sword overlord. Like he might be the more cool-headed, like the oh let's he's very selfless, as you can see by one of the endings in the game if you got that far.
Yeah.
He, so in both those two things combined made me think, oh, if for some reason I just imagine tea in general, and it's a different tea every time.
Mm-hmm. No, I
If you
like
ask him
that.
like one day it's going to be this, the other it's going to be this, that kind of deal.
I think that's great too because you can imagine like you're right, there are so many different kinds of tea, and I'm just
Mhm.
imagining chaos has like this big bin where they dump all the tea that they have and then they just stick their hand in there and they pull out
Yeah, just
a,
like
a tea bag.
mix all these flavors of tea into like a big jar, and then just stick the hand. Don't even they're not
Yep.
even labeled. You don't even know what it is until you brew it.
Mhm.
Exactly. It's just like, oh, what have I got today? Ooh, raspberry zinger.
Ooh, that's a nice one. But I like the contrast between Overlord's extremely consistent choice of it's always swords And
Hmm.
Chaos, it's like, I don't know what it is. We'll find out. Next up on the list is AB, or Arena Blaster. This time I'm gonna say Malachi.
Okay, my thoughts on this are AB. So AB Arena Blaster's reading the paper in the pause screen,
Yeah.
which has always made people, and Arena Blaster's the earliest visitor number one.
Yes.
So I think that's always led people to kind of joke about Arena Blaster being old, right?
Yes.
Like the boomer ship or whatever. But
Like the eldest one of the set.
yes. And so like Ruben mentioned earlier, like well, we were talking about how coffee it's an old drink, right?
Hmm.
It's an in many ways it's an old fashioned drink because it's been around for so long.
I think you and I are about gonna say the same thing. I have an inkling.
And that is something that appeals to me about coffee is that it's kind of like this it's this drink that people have been drinking for generations. Like
It's a
when I read
classic.
yeah, when I read about people drinking coffee in history in the past, I'm always like, oh, like yeah.
Yeah, 18th century Paris coffee houses, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I find that very charming. So I think Arena Blaster is probably drinking coffee because, like Noel, they're on the grind. But Arena Blaster definitely has a flask, and they're adding a little bit of whiskey to every cup they drink.
Ooh, ooh, strong, strong. See, I had a very similar but not quite identical idea,
Hmm.
which is that again, and part of the reason why I pick coffee is because AB's sort of gimmick is like actives with charges, and the pickup used to refill those charges is coffee. It's like, okay, they like coffee, and they're also like the eldest ship. So I'm thinking, okay, what would be an old-fashioned way of making coffee? And then I realized coffee percolator, like the old school. You put
Mm.
everything together and you boil it. So I'm thinking they just drink like coffee done the old-fashioned way, and I think that I'd like to imagine that if they gave a cup of it to Nalt, it's gonna be, ugh, what is this? Ugh.
Yeah.
This kind of bitter, like I don't know if it's like drinking coffee that's been made by your grandma. It's like
Hmm.
you appreciate the gesture, but it's like no,
It's like it's been sitting out for a while.
yeah,
Or I've had people that I've had coffee where someone put it in the fridge. They made it like the day before, and then they just put it in the fridge, and then they bring it
hmm,
out and they reheat it.
It's a thing. I've never seen
yes,
that before.
yes, it's a thing.
Someone do that.
Yeah, so that's my. It's like old coffee. Not necessarily the cup of coffee itself is old, but
Hmm.
it's made in a very old fashioned way. That I would say youngsters like Noel would probably not appreciate. It's like what? Ugh, God no.
It's like it's Folgers.
Ah, yes, the classic. Okay, now I'm interested in what's Ruben's choice for
Oh,
AB.
this one's definitely the least thought out. Okay, so I have to admit, before you guys suggested this episode,
Hmm.
I was trying to write down notes. I think I came up with the idea for Overlord and Chaos pretty quick, but then AB was like, actually, I don't even really know that much about him. Let me look up on the wiki now that that's the thing and see what the
Hmm.
story is. Let me read you the story of AB. Arena Blaster is the first visitor of the facility. Arena Blaster didn't make it any further than the maintenance system after the maintenance system before being destroyed. End of story. Like that's all the information. I'm like, okay. Luckily, I'm not the only one who doesn't know anything about this guy.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
that's
I
fair.
picked up on two things there. Also, that he's old,
Hmm.
Hmm.
and whatever he was having, it wasn't exactly performance enhancing. He died on the third floor, so he was drinking wine before he entered, and I imagine that's his favorite drink.
That's not a bad choice, actually.
Yeah,
Those two
yeah,
together, like a kind of an old drink, right? And
Yeah.
then
yeah.
he was drunk going in. He's like, oh, whatever. Gets hit by an icicle and dies.
Overconfident.
Yeah,
he,
exactly.
he he was trying to knock the icicle down to get a little ice in his wine glass, maybe.
Ooh.
Right. Yeah.
That's
Well, maybe in that case, he was trying to drink like apple cider, some other alcoholic beverage, like something where ice would fit better.
Oh,
yeah,
that's true.
because
Yeah, I guess he wouldn't put
you don't
ice in the
put
wine.
ice in your. You cool the wine in like a cooler, like a bucket with full of ice, but you don't put it
Mhm.
in the drink. That's considered to be you're watering down the drink.
Yeah, well, yeah. I've revealed that I don't drink a lot of wine.
Mhm. That's fair. That's also that's a pretty fitting choice too. Actually, I like that answer.
I there probably is more story that I just forgot, but that's all I was working off of, and
I
I think it fits what my perception of AB.
I don't think you miss much on much story. I think it's just like we just don't know much about them at all.
Mhm.
And now we have come to the last and definitely least character of the bunch, Skully.
Oh,
Would anyone like to go first, or shall I?
I didn't write anything for this. It wasn't in the notes,
yeah,
like the
it
show
wasn't in the
notes.
notes. I forgot. I thought we weren't doing Scully. I thought we were anti Scully here.
Energy
I
drink. There you go. Energy drink.
okay.
Monster energy drink.
Your Monster Energy, and then specifically the ones where every time you take a sip, you get a heart attack.
The supercharged one, which is like,
Yeah.
oh, we put like so many chemicals in this. See, I had a different opinion.
Mhm.
I wanted to do something that seemed almost ill-fitting compared to all of my other choices. So I thought, what would be something that would be a bit garish and kind of unconventional? I thought, okay, it's like it's like a fruit punch with a lot of fruit,
Mhm.
and it is served in one of those mugs that's shaped like a skull. So he's just drinking out of a skull-shaped mug, and it's like fruit and alcohol. That's it. He just drinks that, and it's like pineapples, mango, apple. Just put it in there.
Mm.
Just some like because I think that to me brings to mind like kind of the thing of Skully is like you collect a whole bunch of stuff and you end up with this assortment of things just put together that's in a way that's not very elegant.
Mhm.
And for me, I just thought, yeah, someone who just put put fruits, put a bit, put make sure it has alcohol, and then just drinking out of this extremely garish mug because
Mm.
why not?
Yeah, I think that would be pretty disturbing to the other skull mechs. They're like, what? Imagine someone having a mug of like a human head. There
That
probably are. There probably
there,
really
there
are skull
are
mugs.
It
there
must
are.
exist. Yeah, I feel like it can't not exist.
I'm not saying he's drinking out of a real skull, but it's
No, no, no.
definitely
Yeah.
skull shaped.
I think Scully would be drinking milk for the calcium.
All right.
Because he's a 4 year. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Even though it doesn't make any sense because I don't think Scully's skull
No,
is
no, you
really
know
a
what?
skull.
You know what? You know what? It doesn't matter. It fits.
Yeah,
It fits.
Scully would be drinking calcium.
Not even chocolate milk, just milk.
No, 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 no. White milk, and in fact, extra calcium.
Sure.
That's a thing.
And I know that's a thing. I'm just like
Calcium enriched milk.
I know that's a thing. I'm just like, yeah, that's so different from all the others in a way that's not really impressing me. So it fits.
Yeah, and he's telling himself, "This is gonna make me stronger." It's like doesn't make any sense at all.
He bought into the propaganda of big milk, and look at him now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a unhealthy drink. It's just not going to do as much as it's advertised.
I'm imagining Scully like in the apocalypse wasteland in the destroyed city outside the facility. There was like one TV still functioning, and it's playing like this milk ad on repeat. Make your bones stronger. Drink milk. Scully's like, yes.
I mean, I had a horrible thought, and you can edit this out, Malachi, if you want. But I'm like, I know so far we have not even remotely contemplated the question of like where the drinks are coming from, and I'm like, well, milk comes from cows. Are there any cows left? Where else would you get your calcium? And I'm like, well, you could take some bones and turn them into powder.
Oh gosh.
So it's like powdered bone milk.
Bone broth.
Yeah, bone broth. Yeah, bone broth. Yeah.
There, we made it. We got there. That's the drink. That's the one.
Skully drinks bone broth.
Oh.
Oh, this was such a bad idea.
Thanks so much for listening to our Star of Providence fan cast. Big thanks as always to Garoslaw for allowing us to use his music and sound effects.
Be sure to check out all of the Star of Providence soundtracks on Bandcamp. The base game soundtrack, Relics of the Past soundtrack, and the 5th Anniversary Edition soundtrack. And once again, thank you so much to Ruben for joining us, for having fun with us, and just having such a dumb but fun time together.
It's always a great time. Thanks for bringing me back.
If you have any comments or suggestions for the show, you can reach out to us on our Discord server. We'll post the server link in the show description.
And there you will find fellow pilots to talk with and discuss the show. Thanks for listening. We'll hope you'll join us next time.
This is what you came for, isn't it?
So be it.